Hey there, planners. Today I want to talk about what's on my reading list and what I've been reading lately and how I am learning a bit more about how to be productive. So go grab your planners and let's get planning. All right, so I know this is a bit of a different video than you are used to seeing from me, but I thought I would share with you this sort of self-learning journey that I'm on. I decided as part of my 2023 goals that I would do a self-directed study in the science and art of productivity. And I have made for myself a reading list here. There are, I believe, like 28 or 29 books here. I have since added to it, and I think the list is almost up to 50 books that are really focused on productivity, efficiency, time management, planning techniques, really how to make the most of the time that we're given, managing that time, and to be the most productive that we can be. So here's my list. And here are the books that I have already kind of dove into. Some of them I've finished reading, some of them I'm still in the process of reading, but I thought I would go through these and share with you how I'm attacking this and what I'm learning from each of these. So let me start with the first one that I read, and that is a book that really kind of set me off on this journey in the first place, and that is Building a Second Brain. All right, so Building a Second Brain. This is by Tiago Forte. I have watched YouTube videos and seen interviews and just was hearing a lot about this book. This is a concept book around how do you unlock your ability to be more creative, to be more efficient, to be more effective in your day-to-day life by building a secondary supplemental brain. The book talks about this being a digital brain that you can house information in and be able to pull when you need it. So the entire concept of that was very interesting to me. If you think about your life today, even if you are not a person who uses digital planning, you have digital spaces where information is housed and saved. I think about like Google Docs and Dropbox and various cloud storage locations where information is saved. I even think about like password saving functions of your browser, right? So there's just like a lot of information kind of scattered throughout online and digital spaces. And that really is serving as sort of a secondary brain for you where you are saving information that then you can tap into as needed. And the benefit of this, the reason why this sort of rang true to me, and I was interested in reading this book by Tiago anyway, is that I am such a proponent of brain dumps and clearing your brain. You guys have seen videos from me about weekly reviews and how I get information out of my head onto paper or into my planning system so that I do not clog up my brain with trying to remember those. I will have some of those videos listed down below if you're interested in seeing that. But very similar concept here. And this book kind of goes into detail about how do you actually build that second brain. So I want to just give you a glimpse into how I read each of these books. I started with this one, and what I will typically do is read through the book with a highlighter in hand. So as I flip through here, you can see that I have highlighted certain things, made some notes, even jotted down like some action items for myself. Let me do just a quick flip like this. You can see on the various pages where I have highlighted information that I found, like I even made a little, here's a mistake number 1 for over highlighting, which I thought was really funny. So I drew a little smiley face. But you can see that I made, I starred information, made highlights, made notes in the margins as I read. So that is how I'm reading these books. The second step that I take as I'm reading these books is once I finish reading all the way through it and I've made all the highlights, is I'm actually capturing my notes and kind of expanding on them in Notion. So I will flip over to Notion and just give you a preview of how I'm capturing my notes here. All right, so here's a page I set up specifically in Notion to be able to capture my notes on this book. And I've set up pages like this for each of the books that I'm reading. So I will go into more detail about everything going on in Notion that I'm using, because I'm actually using Notion to build a second brain. I think it's a fantastic location, and I can go into more detail about that if anyone is interested. Leave that down in the comments below. But here's how I'm capturing notes. So I've got, a cover, and I've got a little section right at the top that says next steps for this book. So what actions do I want to take after reading this book? And it's just a really simple checklist. I've got a picture of the book here. And then I actually have my notes. So I broke the notes down into sort of sections of the book. And if I open up the first one called Problem and Promise, you will see that this is just my highlighted information that I've extracted, and it goes into detail about what is the problem that this book is trying to solve and what is the promise of this book. So by the time I get to the end, if I follow what the book says, what should I be able to accomplish? And I've got this same note for every one of the books that I'm reading about productivity and time management. I've got a section called What is a Second Brain? And then I've captured all my notes about what is a second brain in here, just for quick reference. Another thing I love about capturing notes like this in a database in Notion is that I can easily search. So when I go to search, I can pull up, these ideas really quickly, specific items from this database. I've got the benefits, the tools, the code system. This is capture, organize, distill, express, and then 12 favorite problems. How to set it up, and strategies for creative projects. So I've got all my notes captured right here for easy reference. All right, so that's a quick look at what I'm actually doing and how I'm reading this. Let me go through a couple of the other books. So I would highly recommend this book. I think this is awesome. I think the concept is awesome. I think it is a great resource, especially for those of us who are super busy and have a lot in our minds. I think Building a Second Brain is really fantastic, and I would highly recommend this book. So let me move on to a couple of the other books that I am in the process or have finished reading. All right, so the next book is a book called The 12-Week Year. Get more done in 12 weeks than others do in 12 months. It is by Brian Moran and Michael Lennington. This book was really interesting. So I would say this book is great if you are a leader and you are managing teams, if you own your own business and you are managing, personnel as part of that business. I also think it has some applicability to your personal life. So the book, the way it's written, it's really targeted for both professional, leaders, leadership organizations, corporations, but it's also tailored to or targeted to individuals. I think there is a bit more applicability in this to teams. So teams of employees, working teams, professional teams, even like volunteer teams. I could see if you had like a youth group leadership team at church, like this could be a good tool for that. Some teams like that. What I will say about this book is it's an interesting concept. So the first half of the book is really an explanation of what is the 12-week year. And then the second half of the book is like step-by-step instructions for how to implement it. The concept here is when we think about goal setting and, progress tracking against our goals, we typically think in annual timeframes. So I'll use January to December as an example. When we set a goal in January that we want to accomplish by the end of the year, what typically happens more often than not is we waste a lot of time through the year. And then at the very end of the year, there is a great amount accomplished. There's some really good momentum that happens in the last quarter of the year because we see the end coming, right? So we make the most movement on our goals, on our annual goals in the last 12 weeks of the year because we're coming to a close. Performance is always better at the end of the year. Sales are higher, numbers are achieved. Things happen at the end of the year because we see, the end of the year and there's a performance review coming and, our incentive is based on this. So that's kind of the concept here. So what the authors propose is instead of having 12 months a year where we really only use a portion of that time to get very motivated towards our goals, why not have a 12-week year? Meaning we would treat each 12 weeks, each quarter, as though it were its own year. Now, important distinction, it does not mean that you are treating each 12 weeks, each quarter as its own entity within the year. We already do that. No, we're actually talking about treating 12 weeks each quarter as its own year, where you would have brand new goal setting. You would have, like New Year's resolution, that brand new year energy. And then at the end of that 12 weeks, you would have closeout, performance reviews, reflection, closing down the goals and giving yourself a rating, and then moving on to set new goals. So it really is like shrinking the year down to 12 weeks. And so every year equals 4 years. Every calendar year equals 4 performance years. So that's the concept. It's interesting. I think there are some real benefits to kind of thinking this way, and also just recognizing that when we set 12-month goals, it is very difficult to be able to get specific in those 12-month goals because you have no idea what's going to happen 7, 8, 9 months from now. So I do think that's very interesting. And I realized that as I was reading this book that I actually do this with my planning and productivity systems. If you've been watching this channel for any amount of time, you have seen me do a planner reset every quarter. So I have a winter planner, a spring planner, a summer planner, a fall. I do this with my planner system because I know I will need different things at different times throughout the year. So I think this is a really interesting read. I think there are certainly benefits if you are leading people or leading a team at work. I think or in some other voluntary situation, I think there are definitely benefits to things to learn from this and definitely some takeaways. Not so sure if it's really easily applicable to individual goal setting. Maybe there's some concepts, but I was glad I read it and definitely took some things away. All right, so here's another book, 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. This is by Oliver Burkeman. This book is really interesting. I had such an emotional response to this book. So the concept is very simple. The average human lifespan is 4,000 weeks long. That's incredibly short when you think about it, right? And actually could be a bit depressing if you spend too much time thinking about that. The average human life is very short. And the concept that this author puts forward is that the majority of productivity and time management techniques and books and trainings that are out there in the world approach this completely wrong because they absolutely ignore the fact that we only have 4,000 weeks. There is, according to this author, a real flaw in thinking that we will have the ability to create more time for ourselves or to push things out to the future when we will have more time in the future, because the truth is we will not. And so the author spends an incredible amount of time, many, many, many pages, really nailing that and hammering it home that we do not have very much time on this earth as humans. I mean, a lot. The author spends a ton of time on this. And To me, there is certainly a benefit to recognizing this. And the key point from the author is that we just have to be selective about what we spend our time on, and it has to be done in a no regrets manner where we recognize we cannot get it all done. We will not be able to create more time. We have a finite amount of time on earth, and therefore we must make difficult choices to select what we spend our time on. So that's the premise. I found the book to be inspirational and just kind of driving home a point that we don't often recognize to ourselves or talk about, our finite time on earth. We don't often spend time thinking about that. So I thought the book did an excellent job of that. I also thought the book was a bit depressing because I think the author could have written this book. Let's see, this book is over 250 pages long to kind of nail down that concept. I think the book could have been much shorter. And I found parts and pieces of this book personally to be a bit depressing to me as the author really delves down into the details and continues to hammer away at our limited amount of time on Earth. So I thought this book was really interesting. I would recommend this book for anybody who has just maybe tried a lot of different time management techniques and is still really struggling. I think there's something really valuable to be gained from this book around recognizing our finite time and inspiring us to make the difficult choices to really, select what we're going to spend our time on, and thereby also selecting what we will not spend our time on. I think this book is excellent for motivating you to do that. I just also think that it can be a bit depressing given the length and the amount of words that the author spends driving home your finite little mortal life. So I don't know if that helps anyone as far as selecting this book, but it is a very unique and interesting read. All right, so I talked about the 3 books that I have gotten through already. I did want to share the 2 books that are coming up. The next 2 books that I have to read are really interesting. There is one called Deep Work. This is by author Cal Newport, and this is Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. I've heard a lot about this book. I've seen a lot of reviews of it, so I'm really excited to get into this one. And then the next one is Ellen Fay and Productivity for How You're Wired. So a roadmap for real change and better work-life balance based on specifics for you. So that's about all I know about it yet. I haven't read a whole lot about this, but it did come up as a recommended book for me, so I'm excited to get into both of these. Please let me know down in the comments below if you are interested in hearing more about these books and all the other books in my list of 50 that I'm going to be reading about productivity and time management this year. I don't know that I'll get to all 50, but I'm certainly going to try. If you'd like to see more of my Notion setup, maybe a Notion tour, let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to Planning Annie for more content like this, and as always, thanks for planning with me.